The brave ant and the sleeping lion. Deep in the golden heart of the African savanna, where the earth breathes dust and the winds sing through tall acacia trees, there lived a lion named Baraka, the undisputed king of the plains. His mane glistened like fire beneath the sun, and his roar echoed through the valleys, commanding both fear and respect from every creature. Every dawn, when the sun rose in ribbons of red and gold, the animals bowed in silence, for it was said that Baraka's roar brought life to the savanna. But as seasons passed, the mighty lion grew proud, too proud. His roar became less about protection and more about power. He took first from the waterhole, hunted more than he needed, and frightened even those who offered him respect. Among the smallest of creatures who lived near his domain was a tiny ant named Kito. Kito lived with his colony under a mound not far from Baraka's favorite tree, the grand acacia where the lion slept away his afternoons. Every day, Kito would see the lion stretch lazily after a feast, his heavy paws resting on the warm ground, while animals dared not come close. But Kito was not afraid. He admired the lion, his beauty, his strength, yet he often wondered. Does greatness mean scaring others? Or does it mean protecting them? He would watch as smaller animals like rabbits or birds scurried away at the lion's growl, and deep inside, the little ant wished he could one day show that courage wasn't about size or strength, but about heart. Then came a day that changed everything. The sky burned with heat that morning. The air was still, heavy, and dry. The grass cracked underfoot, and even the wind seemed to hide. It was the kind of day when danger sleeps quietly, waiting. Baraka, as usual, lay under his acacia tree, belly full after a hunt, his head resting in peace. The savanna around him was silent except for the distant cry of hornbills. But far beyond the river's edge, a careless spark, perhaps from two stones struck by baboons, set the tall grass ablaze. The fire began small, but the wind, the African wind, carried it fast, faster than any animal could run. Soon, thick smoke rolled through the plains. Birds screamed and took to the skies. Gazelles leapt in panic. Elephants trumpeted as they ran to the river. Even the snakes slithered deep into the ground. But under the acacia tree, the great lion slept on, his breathing deep, unaware of the danger creeping close. Kito, who had been gathering food nearby, lifted his head and smelled the smoke. His tiny heart raced. He saw the flames in the distance, bright and hungry, moving toward the lion's resting place. He turned to his colony and shouted, "Run! The fire is coming!" The ants scattered underground. But Kito did not run. He looked back at the sleeping king and said softly, "If no one saves him, the fire will." He hesitated for only a heartbeat, then ran toward the lion. The heat grew unbearable as Kito climbed up the lion's massive paw. The air shimmered, and ash began to fall like rain. The flames were drawing near, snapping and hissing. Kito reached the lion's ear and shouted, "Wake up, Your Majesty. The fire is near." But Baraka only groaned in his sleep. The roar that could shake the world was now replaced by a lazy snore. Kito tried again, shouting, pushing, even crawling into the lion's mane, but the king slept on. The fire crackled closer, and Kito's courage began to tremble. Then, in one final act of desperation, the tiny ant bit the lion's ear hard. Baraka roared awake, his mighty voice thundering through the plains. "Who dares disturb my sleep?" he bellowed, shaking his head. His eyes fell on the tiny ant clinging to his mane. "It is I, Kito the ant," cried the trembling voice. "The fire is coming. Look around you, great king." Baraka turned, and for the first time in many moons, fear touched the lion's heart. Flames surrounded the acacia, smoke rose like clouds, and the dry grass blazed all around. With a single leap, the lion bounded from the fire's path, running toward the open plains. The heat licked his fur, but he ran until he reached the safety of the riverbank. He stood there, panting, his golden mane darkened with soot, his heart thundering from both fear and gratitude. When the fire finally died and the night grew cool, Baraka looked down and saw the tiny ant resting on his paw, exhausted but alive. "You saved me," the lion said softly. "You, a creature smaller than a pebble, it saved the king of the plains." Kito bowed humbly. "A king is still alive, Your Majesty. And every life deserves to be saved." For a long time, Baraka said nothing. Then he lowered his great head and whispered, "From this day, no lion in my kingdom shall ever harm an ant. You have shown me that bravery does not come from size, but from the heart that dares." Kito smiled. "And you, my king, have shown that strength is greatest when it listens." And from that day on, the mighty Baraka changed. His roar no longer frightened the weak, it protected them. The animals loved him not out of fear, but out of respect. And whenever he walked near an anthill, he would lower his head and greet the tiny creatures who once saved his life. And as for Kito, he became a legend among ants, the brave one who beat a lion and lived to tell the tale. Moral of the story: true courage is not found in power, but in the heart that chooses to do what's right, even when it seems small. See you on our next episode of Ancient Animal Stories. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and share.